Welcome to the journey of an aesthete, a comprehensive examination of all things aesthetic, the arts, the humanities, and what it means to be human. Robin Mahaffey.
Yes?
Robin Mahaffey, this is Mitch Hampton from the podcast Journey of an Aesthete.
Yes, hi.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
It's good to have.
It was a good day here. Lovely weather.
Yeah, it's been a good day here too. It's a little on the cool side, but it's spring, and as my friend Jane LaCroix remarks, spring is basically winter with makeup on, so it's to be expected.
I thought.
Well, basically, on our show, we do a little introduction where we praise the guest and talk about all their many talents and what they've accomplished, and you're no exception. I guess some of our guests, I guess we know personally. Some we've never met. In your case, you're a friend of our producers, Laurie, correct?
Correct.
So I think it would be best if we start to say that, you're multi-talented. And as far as I know, you are not only a seamstress and a needlepoint expert, right?
Well, not so much needlepoint, but because that's a whole, separate category within the needlecraft itself.
Needlecraft.
I have done.
Yeah. Well, but you're also a photographer. So I guess what I'm saying is you work in many mediums.
Yeah.
So many that I'm sure we may not even be able to get to all of them in this episode. I don't know, but you're quite accomplished in these different mediums. And I guess usually on our show, we start off with how an individual artist, how they come to learn about what they master, what they get good at over time. And in your case, if we're doing a linear chronology, where would you like to start with all this?
Well, when I was a young girl, my grandmother and my mother were always doing something, sewing or knitting or crocheting.
Mm-hmm.
And I just followed along in their footsteps.
So for you, it was actually in the home. So I guess what it was is you were seeing other people in your family crocheting and knitting. What would you? So would you mind if saying? I think the first moment, maybe it was when you were a child, I have no idea, that you successfully knitted something for the first time or learned how to do it. Do you mind talking about a little bit about that? Or
no, not at all. I must have been 8 or 9.
Okay.
And, well, my sister was on the way and everybody was busy making all these little things. And I said, well, I want to do some too. So my mother sat down and she showed me how to knit.
Okay.
And first project was full of holes and drop stitches, but, she's very patient and she fixed it and gave it back to me. And I knit and I think I made a little, square for a doll or something.
Yeah. So you made a doll, but you remember it was a square.
Yeah, it was just like a little blanket for a doll or something.
Blanket for a doll. Okay.
Yeah. I crocheted, I think I made my troll doll an outfit.
Uh-huh.
Because trolls were real popular when I was young. So I made an outfit for my troll doll.
Well, when would this been era-wise? Well, first of all, location-wise, you in Maryland, right?
I grew up in Delaware.
Delaware, and this was in a rural setting, right? Kind of farm country?
We lived on a farm.
What kind of farm was it?
A gentleman's farm. My grandfather worked for the Pennsylvania Railroad for 50 years, but he had a 100-acre farm.
Okay.
And when my parents got married, they gave my parents an acre of land within that farm, and my mom and dad built a house. And that was in 1960.
Wow. So do you mind talking for just a couple minutes about the railroad? Because I know that was a very, that was something that Pennsylvanians were proud of, right? And it was a major a kind of a big deal. Do you mind talking we'll get to the knitting, but I think it's important because I think our listeners might learn something about that. What comes to mind when you talk about the railroads and your at that time?
Well, he worked all through the Depression, so he was very happy about that. He had a job.
Yeah.
And he just stayed with it, and he was a machinist. He fixed the engine, and he could look at a screw, and he could tell you exactly what kind of screw it was and how it was threaded and how big it was just by looking at it. He was a wizard at fixing things. So he was able to fix all the tractors that he used on the farm. But, he was amazing. He could fix lots of things.
Did he fix it? What kind of things did he fix, say, around the house? Never mind for work or labor for a wage, but what were some things that you remember that you guys got into a pickle there in the house or something broke down and amazingly he seemed to fix it?
Well, if the car went down, he was the first person you went to ask to work on the engine of the car. Uh-huh. He could fix the tractors. He could fix the lawnmowers.
Wow.
Anything mechanical. He was very good with it.
So I guess that was something that he was good at. But so I guess alongside his world, I guess the father's world, you had your own world of knitting and crocheting. So what would you say the relationship was between these two worlds? I guess they're linked by using your hands, right? I guess handcraft
and figuring out how to make something work. If there was a piece of farm equipment that something went awry with it, he could figure out how to put stuff together. And like jury rig is an expression that he would use, that he could just make it work.
Yeah. I guess that was pretty important depending upon what it was, if it involved, I guess if it involved food or people eating, I'm sure that's pretty important.
He always grew a big garden.
Oh, wow.
He always had a large garden. He grew the best tomatoes.
And you folks would eat that, right?
Oh, yeah. And anything he grew, my grandmother would can and preserve and put up.
What were some of the vegetables or fruits that you folks enjoyed that he was able to give me an example? Not to get too detailed, but it just fascinates me because this is awesome.
Oh, tomatoes, corn, green beans, squash. Mm-hmm. There were apple trees on the farm and some pear trees. Huh. So he would grow food for the people to eat, and he also grew food to feed the animals that were on the farm.
Wow.
There was a dairy. We had a couple of dairy cows because I remember as a young girl going out and helping milk, and then he'd carry the milk into the house, and my grandmother would, take care of that. And we had a goat one time, but that didn't last too long. I don't remember why. But
you say the goat didn't last too long is because the goat didn't have a long life, or because why? I mean, what you know?
I think it got out of its pen and it ate things it wasn't supposed to.
Oh, you mean got
like my grandmother's
food?
My grandmother's plant.
Oh, wow. I guess goats are sensitive animals, right? I don't know much about the goat, but I guess they're
yes. They're very smart.
Right. In what way? But makes a goat? You said a goat's very smart. What is an example of the intelligence of a goat?
They can figure out how to get out of pens and fields and gates. They climb and they just go where they want to.
Okay. Yeah, I guess they get into mischief or trouble from the human's point of view.
Yeah. And we had chickens and geese and ducks. And don't go in and collect the goose's eggs when they're sitting on them because they will chase you.
Yeah.
I learned that the hard way.
Did you learn that as a little girl not to do that, or?
Oh yeah, you go in when the geese are sitting on their nest, and you go and you take one of their eggs. Oh, they will chase you.
Huh. So all this is going on, and yet you're developing these other skills. So, I mean, I guess a troll doll I guess, I mean, it's funny to you. I don't know. So, but I'm just interested, I guess, in the development. So when did you start developing, I guess, using those skills with other results or other types of things?
8 or 9, I started seeing what everybody was doing with the knitting and crocheting and the sewing. So I wanted to be a part of that. So I just picked up some things and learned how to do it. I fashioned, because we had ponies, so I grew up riding horses most of my life.
Okay.
And I made harnesses for the ponies out of binder twine. I made a harness so the pony could pull me around on the sled in the snow. I made a harness for the dog and hitched him up to the wagon. So when my grandfather was chopping wood, I would pick up the little pieces, the kindling pieces, and put them in the wagon and use the dog to haul the wagon back to stack the wood in the woodshed. So if I needed something for the pony, I would usually just braid up some binder twine. I was figuring out how to make things.
Yeah, that's interesting, because that's of course the theme of our podcast is that everything that humans make, well, it's made, and it could be something well known or something practical or something not so well known, or and so that's vitally important. So there was also an equestrian aspect to is what you're saying. Like,
yeah. My grandmother put me on my first pony when I was 2, and that was it. I just fell in love with it and just continued that for a big part of my life.
Yeah.
And she would let me ride the pony around and around in a small circle in the side yard next to the house, so much that there was a path worn out and there wasn't any grass right there in the middle of the yard. But she didn't care. She would sit there and she would be, shelling peas or snapping beans or husking corn, whatever. And there I'd be just riding around the circle. And she gave me some advice that I have used to this day. Yeah. And she said, sit up straight and pay attention to where you're going. So that can be applied to so many different parts of your life. Sure.
Well, yeah, that's certainly true. What that phrase or that thing you remember? When did that? Do you mind? While we're on the subject, thinking of other things in your life later on where that very much applied. It could be a different art medium or different experience in life where that served.
Yes, because I started playing the flute in band when I was 7. So there you go. Sit up straight and pay attention to what you're doing. So it came in handy then. So, when you're learning how to drive the car, sit up straight and pay attention to what you're doing.
Yeah. I'm not able
when you're in
to drive myself.
And you're learning. Sit up straight and pay attention to what you're doing. Pay attention to what that teacher's up there telling you.
Yeah. So talk a little bit, if you don't mind, your development even further, because you're in band, so I guess you were doing music.
Yeah.
But how did you? So it sounds like you're much more accomplished than I am. There's only a couple things I can do. You do hundreds of things. So to someone like myself, this is very almost overwhelming. So what is it like to be able to do all these things? Or let me ask you this: how did you organize your time in terms of what was most important to you, where your focus went? In terms
whatever needed done first. If I needed a halter for the pony, that's what got done first, and everything else had to wait.
So that's how.
I was a teenager in the early 70s.
Oh, wow.
So, hot pants and mini skirts were in fashion.
Sure.
And I was determined I crocheted myself a pair of hot pants, and I was determined to wear them to school the next day. And I think I stayed up till 3:00 in the morning so I could finish them, so I could wear them.
That's beautiful. You know, of course, I would love to see some archival photos of those if you have any, because that would be right down my alley.
Well, in about 5 years or so after that, I did wear them for a Halloween. I was a lady of the evening.
Yeah. Well, you probably.
I did.
So not to interject, but would it be fair to say that you have a lot of 70s memorabilia or 1970s?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's like my favorite era. You know, like I appreciate the music from that time more so, and you know, I have a tendency to trend towards those type of fashions. I have been called a hippie chick more than once in my life.
Yeah. Excellent. So is that when you got into photography, or did that happen later?
No, my dad was really big into photography. He had his own dark room, and he could develop all his own black and white pictures. Don't you dare go in there and touch any of his stuff. Yeah. He wouldn't let you do that. And if you ever asked to borrow a camera, he would get, oh, just push this button and don't do anything else, like the camera's going to blow up or something. So sure. When he died in 98, I got one of his cameras. Oh. And I said, all right, I'm going to figure out how to use it. He had given me a small little Kodak Instamatic 104 when I was, 13 or something. And I took all kinds of pictures of that. I took pictures of the cats, the ponies, everything, everything I could take a picture of, I did. So I'd give him the film when it was used up, and he'd take it into town, and he'd get it developed, bring me the pictures back. Yeah. But he would never sit there with me and say, oh, well, this is a good picture, or you should have done. He never explained anything to me. He just handed me my pictures. So I never really knew anything about photography. Uh-huh. So when he died in 98, I got one of his cameras, and I said, I'm going to figure out how to use this. So I signed up for a photography class at the community college. Yeah. And I started taking this class, and the instructor said, you need to come take my full-length classes. It was just a Saturday class, like 4 or 5 Saturdays in a row. She goes, you're good. You need to come take my other class. So I signed up, and I took another class, and they said, how would you like to be a teacher's assistant? I said, okay. So I started being a teacher's assistant. And then they said, how would you like to be the administrator of the program, work with the boss? And I said, okay. So I started being the administrator. Then it was like, so-and-so can't be here. How would you like to be a substitute teacher? I said, okay. So I did that. And then they said, how would you like to have your own class? And I said, okay. So I did that for 15 years.
Wow. So you develop these different skills. So I guess what I'm gonna, do you mind if I rewind a little bit, because that's in the late 90s. So what were you doing mainly in the 1980s or say late 70s through 94? Say that was it mostly?
Well, I had my daughter in 77, so I was busy raising her. Okay. When I went through my first divorce, I started working at General Motors building cars.
I'll be done.
And built a Chevette in the Wilmington plant in Delaware. So did that for a couple of years. And then I met my second husband, and we got married. And then we moved to a little farm in Maryland, and I got horses again. So I was teaching my daughter how to ride, and I had these horses, and I trained them, and I started taking them to some shows again. Mm-hmm. And we did that for a while. My daughter got involved in Pony Club, so I helped her with that, and I helped the Pony Club people. And my daughter got in band, so then I was very much involved in the band. When she was in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I volunteered time at her school, and I helped the band director. So I helped the flute players. Yeah. I learned how to play saxophone then, because I would sit with the saxophone players with their lesson and learn from them. And then I learned trumpet. So it was just fun. Yeah. So I was busy helping my daughter through school, and then raising the horses and training them.
Well,
and in the meantime, I was doing my sewing, and I incorporated myself at one point because I did custom knitting and sewing for people.
Oh, excellent. So people would want something made, and I guess you would make something personalized for them.
Right. I had a fellow who wanted a camouflage poncho for when he was out hunting. Okay. So I made that for him, and I put a special little pocket on the inside of it for his cigarette so they wouldn't get wet.
Right. Huh. That's fascinating. So I guess if you're working actually in an assembly line for GM, that strikes me as a far cry from being in a kitchen table sewing a dress or hot pants, or being on a horse. These are all very different experiences of reality. So that's you've had a very
eclectic.
You might be the envy of a lot of people that have not had these experiences, or even thought to even want to have such experiences.
Well, I was a single mother. And I had to earn money, and General Motors paid a lot of money. So
they did. That's true. What was your feeling being in GM as opposed to other things you've done? Did you like? There were things about it, I guess, you liked or didn't like, or what comes to mind?
I liked most of it. I had a good time because I'm good with my hands. So the bosses found out that I could do jobs on the left side of the car as well as the right side of the car. Not too many people can do that. So I became a floater, is what they called it. So you would walk along, you had maybe like 10 or 12 jobs all in one certain area, and that was your group. And each person would be working on the car, and they would have a separate job. Well, if they had to go visit the bathroom or take a break, somebody had to do that job because the cars don't stop. They just keep going.
Right.
So someone had to fill in and do their job. So I could do all the jobs on the line, both the left side and the right side.
Yeah.
So that was
And you did you did that for some years. With this, that would have been in the 1980s, right?
Yes. Yeah, it would have been like 81, 82, 83. Wow. No. Yeah, 80, 81, 82. Yeah.
And how long did you do that till when?
It was about 3 years.
How did you find time? So I guess after doing that, you had to kind of fit other things in. But you said yourself that it was always I guess necessity was the mother of invention, right? For you, would it be fair to say?
Yeah.
So it's what needed to be done sooner rather than later, or something coming later.
Yeah.
And I guess that's how you organized your work, I guess, or your
right.
So I guess photography was something that happened rather late then, right?
Yes, it did. And my daughter was already gone. She was already out of the house. And I started, like I said, my dad died in 98, so I got a camera then. So it was like 99, I think, I started working at the school.
Well, what comes to mind, because you've talked about being interested in the flute and the band and taking photographs and sewing, I guess that's a fair question to ask. From my point of view, is do you have something that's more love than something else, or is there a first love, or is there something that that you feel comes to mind?
If I haven't sewn anything for a while, and then I started sewing, and I said, "Oh, why haven't I done this more? I really enjoy doing this." And then I'll get sidetracked into another project, and I'll say, "Oh, I haven't done this for a while. How come I haven't done this for a while? Because I love this." So I love everything when I'm doing it.
I see. So it's all satisfying to you, I guess. In the very. So do you get a special pleasure from? You talked about that dude that was hunting. Do you enjoy making garments like that for people? Is that something that you enjoy?
Well, I sort of specialize in doing unique things that people couldn't find anywhere else. Okay. So it gave me a special sort of niche.
Yeah. And how do you organize I guess I'm wondering how do you find deadlines helpful, or do you for yourself, or how does that?
It depends if it's for me or if it's for somebody else. If it's the deadline is for somebody else, it sort of drives me to get it done. Yeah. If it's for me, sort of put it on the back burner and do something for somebody else first.
I see. I guess it's fair to ask too. Again, what are some of the kind of fibers or yarns that interested you or do interest you? If we're talking about sewing, what were some of the materials that you like to use the most, or would you say?
Ooh, I like things that have texture, that feel good in your hand.
Okay.
So, a nice cotton is always good to sew with. I don't do a lot of quilting. That was my mother and my aunt, her sister, that did that more so. Yeah. And it was just another, I don't want to say hobby, but another interest that you have to have all the gidgy gadgets to go with it. And, there's only so much room. You can only have so much stuff. So you have to sort of draw the line somewhere. So I did not get into the quilting part. I did more sewing clothes. My daughter was very tall and very skinny. Mm-hmm. Kim, don't listen. She was very skinny when she was little, and it was very hard to find clothes to fit her. Mm-hmm. So there was a period of years there, 3 or 4 years, where I made all of her clothes. So she would have something to wear.
Everybody needs an anchor in life. You, me, just everybody. Anchor made this whole show possible. I'm immensely grateful to them. You too can use Anchor to make your own shows and create your own vision. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Yeah, I mean, that's something so this is interesting to me. So I would guess we've only been talking for, I guess, I don't know how long here. It's actually, I guess, a good close to coming on to a half hour. But I would guess that you're the kind of person who is really has a real, I guess, a gift of using your hands and being able to look at an environment or a shape and recreate what you see in your mind's eye in space and time. Would that make sense? Or
yes. A lot of times I did that. And for about 13 years, I was involved with a group of other very talented ladies, and we called ourselves the Ditzy Dolls. And we made soft sculptured dolls, and they could be all different kinds of weird looking things. There wasn't any one certain set that you had, type that you had to do. Yeah. And that really gave me a lot of freedom to experiment with different types of things, of how to create different things. Because I like to make like little dioramas for the doll, so it had to have something to sit on. So you have to make something for the doll to sit on, or it had to have something to hold in its hand. So you figured out how to make that. Okay. Or I took a vase that not a vase, it was a shoe, and it was a candle. It was like leftover Halloween decoration. Mm-hmm. And I turned that into I put wings on it, so it was a flying shoe that these dolls were sitting in. So, you just take found objects and you figure out how to make it work. And you go into the hardware store. It's fun because you look at all the stuff and you say, oh, I could do that with the wire, and I could do that with that rope, and I could do that with those washers.
I don't know. Did you see it? I sent you some Red Groom stuff. I don't know what you...
I did. I looked at it. He's amazing.
Well, I think you're a kindred spirit to him in some respect. I don't know why I think that. But I don't know.
There was a picture of a sculpture that he did that you sent me. It was like, I don't know, a little doll riding a mermaid or something. Yeah. And I was thinking, whoa, that is like some of my weird doll things that I made.
That's right. I thought there would be something to that, but
if I look at the price that he did, he had like $13,000 on that little sculpture, and it wasn't very big. And I'm thinking, oh, I got something like that over here.
Well, see, so maybe that's a maybe you get some ideas with that. I don't know, but
sometimes I have had dreams, and they'll wake me up, and it's like I'll have to write it down before I forget. And then a lot of times I have to make it. I have to make what I saw in my dream so it'll get out of my head and leave me alone.
You know, you might be one of the few people I've talked to that made their own clothes at the peak of 70s fashion. And late, so I guess you made dresses in 70s styles for yourself, right? When you were, I suppose.
I did, and I crocheted myself a lot of tops that I wore.
Oh,
a lot of pictures in the high school yearbook. Yeah, I made that vest. Yep, I did that for those pants. I made that hat. There's a lot of things that I made.
How about later on when you were, of course, as an adult? Did you continue to make things like that, or?
I haven't found so many clothes for myself lately. I mean, because I know I can, and I just haven't because I've been busy doing other things. I moved into the house, and I've been busy doing things for the house and doing things for other people. When COVID hit, everybody needed masks. I kept the whole neighborhood supplied in masks.
Oh, wow.
Because I couldn't find them anywhere.
Sure.
So I just made masks for everybody. That kept me busy.
I bet. I mean, I wonder how many masks would you say that you've actually made?
Close to 300.
Wow. That's beautiful. I mean, we are in strange times now. I guess if you're like yourself, I guess it's really it's interesting to me because I think that if you're again, I use the word overwhelmed. That's not a pejorative thing. It could be a positive thing. It's kind of like horses and band and flute and knitting and hot pants and
leathercraft.
But
I did a lot of leather working.
Leather work. That's isn't leather a field unto itself?
I think so.
Wow.
My dad wanted to do that. And he had all the tools and everything, and you would carve it out and use the different tools to bevel it and emboss it and make the design stand out. I made halters and bridles for my ponies. Oh. I made wristbands with my initials on it for myself. I made belts. I made wallets. I made coasters. I made all kinds of stuff.
Have you ever made suspenders or braces?
No.
I bet you probably could figure out pretty easily how.
Yes. It wouldn't be difficult.
That's interesting.
I'm sure I have the hardware here.
Wow. When you say hardware, what kind of setup do you have there, if I may ask? I mean, what with my grandparents living through the Depression, and my mom was born during the Depression, you save everything. You know, when a shirt becomes non-usable as a shirt, you cut the buttons off and you save them. If a pair of pants don't fit anymore or they've got holes in them, you cut the zipper out and you save them. So I have zippers and buttons and snaps and buckles. You know, you can go to the Goodwill and you can buy a purse and you take the straps off and you use it for something else, or you use the buckles for something else. I mean, that you just find those things. And surprisingly, a lot of people give me stuff. I have so much material that's been donated to me. Or, here, I don't know what to do with all these buckles. You take them. So I have like a whole drawer full of zippers, a whole drawer full of buckles. Well, that's the hardware part. But I guess if we're talking about the software, I'm sure that even like a good shirt, if it's frayed, there's a part where the fabric's still good, right? And you could probably use that for handkerchief or something. Or have you done that as well? I'm sure you have, right?
Oh, yeah. You cut stuff up and reuse it for whatever you need.
Yeah. How do you organize your space? I mean, how do you keep all that sort of organized within your own mind and also
the
space?
The house I live in now used to be a two-bedroom duplex. Somebody came along and they had an attached carport. Somebody came along and they closed in the carports and they took out a lot of middle walls, the middle sections of the house, and turned it into a daycare that was big and wide and open. So my living quarters are on one side of the house. My bedroom and my living room area and the kitchen is on one side of the house. And the other side, the whole other side of the house is my studio. I have a big cutting table. I have shelves. I have plastic drawers. I was gifted these beautiful cabinets. A friend was redoing a custom kitchen for this customer, and they didn't want the custom cabinetry, so I got it. So I have all these nice custom cabinets, and that holds all my supplies. So I have, my doll making supplies together. My zippers are all together. And with my work table, I have cubbies underneath that supports my work table.
Yeah.
And that's where all my material goes. So I have it all folded up, and it's in there by color. So everything's separated out by color. My yarn is all separated out by all the acrylic yarn is together, all the baby yarn is together, all the alpaca and the llama and the camel yarn is together, all the wool is together, all the wool blends are together, all the fuzzy, hairy, sparkly stuff is together. So I just have it all separated. I'm a bit of an organization freak, so
yeah, I should say, if I may interject here, organization is something I've never. My psychiatric evaluation I had when I was turned 49 said I had a disorganized brain, naturally disorganized brain. But I found ways to find organization, even me, in my life. So I could appreciate.
My spices are alphabetized.
Yeah.
My record is all alphabetized.
Yeah.
My books are alphabetized.
Yeah.
My pictures are all in chronological order. I like to be able to find things.
Yeah. I mean, in my own home, in my life, I have everything in a certain place. And I've always lived that way. Everything has to be a certain place, and it has to make sense. And I find
exactly
if it stays that way, that I can function. And
right.
And I don't know how again, it's unique to every person. I could never understand someone not living that way at all, like someone not having a certain order to life. That would drive me crazy. I would not want to. If
you get an idea in your head and you say, "Oh, I need this XYZ," okay,
right.
And you go find XYZ. And if you can't find it, and you're spending all this time looking for it, and you're looking at the store, and then you get sidetracked, and you say, "Oh, I remember this." And then you forget why you were looking for XYZ to begin with.
Yep. It's interesting.
So if you know where XYZ is, then you can go get it, and then you can get started on your project.
Well, it's good because it's a foundation for other things to happen. If you don't have that foundation, then the things can't happen, right? Wouldn't you agree that you have to have that?
Yeah.
You have to have that.
Because if you spend all your time looking for the stuff that you need, then
it doesn't get done.
You lose that spark.
Yep. Yeah, you might lose the spark, and it might not get done. There's two problems that result.
Right.
So in other words, you solve. Yeah, that's true.
Well, I have notebooks like everywhere that I sit in the house. I have notebooks, something to write on, because things just pop up into my head, and I'm thinking, "Oh, that's what I need to do." And if I don't write it down, then I'll totally forget it.
When you had this group, the Ditzy Dolls, who were the names of the other women in the group, or do you want to mention them, or what was some? And you also mentioned some achievements you folks did. What things come to mind? Milestones of that group.
Well, we always said that each year we needed to do some type of a charity event to help someone else. So we made little dolls that we took in to the Children's Hospital. So the children that were in the cancer ward, they would have something to hold on to if they needed it. We donated little dolls to the fire department so they could have something if they were helping a child that was involved with, their house burning down, something to give to them. If they had to be medevaced out to the hospital, something to hang on to while they were riding in the helicopter. And we did that for several years. We did some dolls. We took a Shel Silverstein poem and we made it the character of the poem. Mm-hmm. And as a group, all these dolls went around to the local elementary school libraries. Mm-hmm. And they were on display for like a month or so. And the children could see the characters in the book. It was to help promote reading in the elementary age children.
Yeah.
Then 2 or 3 years, we participated in the Festival of Trees, and it was to help raise money for cancer research. Yeah. So you would have a tree at Christmas time, and you decorate it, and then the tree would get auctioned off. Well, the first year we did it, not too many people wanted a whole tree decorated with all these doll things that we made. Mm-hmm. And so next year we did it, and they auctioned off the dolls separately from the tree. And our tree made $700 and some dollars, made more than any other tree in the festival that year.
Wow. Well, if you want to send some material on that, we love to include it in the because when we do these episodes, we always have a visual
but
component.
The difference was a group of ladies from the Elkton, Maryland. That's where we met. Most of the ladies lived right outside of Elkton. Some of them traveled up from Baltimore a couple of times.
Yeah.
For our meeting, we met the first Wednesday of the month, and usually we met in the library because it was open to the public. And then we found another little meeting spot at a church someplace, and we would meet there. We would have guest speakers come in.
Yeah.
Some of the ladies were very good with clay. The sculpting clay. So we would have a class on sculpting. Some of the ladies had taken classes when they went to the big quilt shows they have in Texas, and they would learn a technique there, and they would bring it back and share with us. So it was a lot of fun.
That does sound like a lot of fun if you motivated to do that. It's phenomenal to me. I mean, Maryland itself is really underrated and phenomenal. I mean, that's a whole other subject unto itself. I'm sure you agree. I mean, many great musicians come out of Maryland, and filmmakers and writers. And is there anything more you want to say on the subject of Maryland? We just recorded an episode for the podcast with a sound engineer. And he had gone to Towson State University, and he was full of stuff that was Maryland related. Mm-hmm. I don't know what comes to mind. It's a big state, but
Well, I lived at the very top of the Chesapeake Bay.
Okay.
So, like in 10 minutes, I could be in Delaware. And 10 minutes driving another direction, I could be in Pennsylvania. So I was in that nice tri-state area.
Okay. What is a typical season? So I know that it gets real cold and real warm, right? But what would you say?
Well, there's four distinct seasons. I live in Georgia now, and seasons are a little bit different here. I think they last longer in, like, the winter is longer and colder, obviously, in Maryland. We got a lot more snow than we do here in Georgia. But it gets hotter and more humid here in Georgia.
Mm-hmm. What would you say in growing up? It could be in the 70s or 80s or, 70s, 60s. You seem like you had so much stimulation in your home. More than, the envy of many children. A lot of children don't get to have such abundance or if you not just the agricultural aspect, but the the working with the hands and the craft. It seems like you had a lot of riches from that perspective. We're looking on that. Can you think of a time when you that's inspiration inside of your, I guess, your town or your immediate environment. Can you remember the first time when you were young, when you were inspired by something totally outside of your house, or something, something that impressed you or made you stand up and pay attention? Whatever comes to mind involving craft or involving making something. Does anything come to mind where you said that?
No, I can't really think of anything because it was just always just a part of me.
Oh, it was always immediate. It wasn't.
Yeah, it's something that I just picked up and said, "Oh, I'm going to do this." No, it was just always there. It was always available. My mother was a big reader. My grandmother was a big reader. So, a lot of times I never really got bored, maybe just disinterested in this one particular thing I might be doing. I mean, I was that crazy kid that would pick up the dictionary and just read the dictionary.
Right.
Or I would just go pull out an encyclopedia and lay there on the floor and just look at the encyclopedia and read all these, weird trivia bits. And I just thought that was fascinating. And I think I was 9 and I asked for a thesaurus for my birthday. I mean, what 9-year-old wants a thesaurus?
Well, when I was 9, I asked for a music encyclopedia.
There you go.
So it's sort of similar, and I did read it and enjoyed it. So I guess you would. That's where you and meet, is in that kind of thing. Yeah.
And not very many girls want erector sets. I did. Yeah. I wanted to put things together.
Well, that's interesting. And so you have because there are aspects of your life, of course, that are traditionally we would call them feminine in terms of the sewing.
Right.
But you also have all these very traditionally masculine, making cars and erector sets. So you have quite a I should say comprehensive.
And for my 10th birthday, or my 9th birthday, I wanted a slot car, racing thing.
Okay.
Because my dad wanted to go up the road and do slot cars when it first became popular. I mean, I think it's done a resurgence and it's become popular again now. But yeah, we had our cars and we'd get in the car and go off and we'd do our slot car racing.
Would you describe yourself as a car aficionado enthusiast? And if so, is that something? No?
No.
Not at all?
No, not really. I mean, I like cool looking cars, but that's about the extent of it.
But you certainly made it, so that's interesting.
Yeah, well, it was just a job.
Yeah.
When I built cars, it was just a job.
That's
and I did target practicing with my father. He worked for the electric company, Delmarva, and they had a sportsman's club, and they had a shooting range there. So I went with my dad to the shooting range, and I learned how to shoot my .22, and I have my junior marksman's badge.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of like a non-traditional girl thing.
Yeah, well, it's interesting.
In the 60s it was.
Oh, absolutely.
It wasn't
the 60s. Yeah, also the 60s too is really like half the 60s is a lot like the 50s, right? So there's like two 1960s. There's the 60s of 64, 65, which is much more 50s, as opposed to 67, 68, which is a whole other thing, much
right,
much wilder,
right.
And you've experienced all of it, but
I did. Yeah, we grew up on a farm. Yeah. Didn't have a lot of other kids growing up around me. So my friends were the ponies and the dogs and the cats and the trees out in the woods. And I just made my own entertainment.
Right.
That was the era that, I'd leave the house and my mother wouldn't see me again until it was dinner time. As long as I showed up to eat, everything was fine.
Everything's fine, yeah. Well, let me have so many questions. I'm not going to ask all of them, but I guess this is going to strike you as an odd question, being a woman who had such a rich experience of nature. What comes to mind of something that you learned by having access to those animals and those kind of environment that you would not have learned had you not experienced all of that? What comes to mind? Something that you got from all of that, Probably many things, not just one thing, but.
Leave a gate as you found it. My grandfather pounded that into my head. If the gate's open, leave it open. If it's closed, make sure it's closed when you leave it.
That's interesting.
But no, taking care of animals, horses, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of physical work. It really is. But I never considered it work because I love the horses. Yeah. And it was just a part of taking care of the horses. I helped my grandfather grow the crops. If I had a nickel for every hour I spent on a tractor seat, I'd be a rich woman today.
Wow.
I helped him grow the crops, and I helped him bale the hay and get it up in the hayloft. And, that just makes you resilient, and it makes you, appreciate things.
Yeah.
And then there for a while, I was working on the racetrack, and I was training racehorses. That's all I ever wanted to do was work with the horses. I wanted to be a jockey, but then they said, "Oh, girls can't be jockeys." This was in the early 60s.
Right.
And I was so disappointed. I said, well, that's not fair. I didn't think to stand up for myself and do it. An adult told me that, well, girls don't do that, so I believed them. When I wanted to go to the University of Delaware and study agriculture, because that's what I wanted to do, I wanted to grow, good food for the horses and take care of them. My guidance counselor said, girls don't study agriculture. Here he was an adult and he was telling me something, and I was so mad because I couldn't do what I thought was going to be my life job. And then when I got a job on the racetrack, I started out at the Delaware Park racetrack.
Yeah.
It was like, I get to play with horses all day and I get paid for it. It was heaven.
So that was kind of a little bit of revenge there, but I don't know. So that's interesting. So what are some other ways? Of course, the racetrack race is an example, but what are some other ways were you able to, finally get to do the thing and this is finally no one's saying no to me? So just come to mind a couple of things where you were able to overcome is the word, or sort of achieve some of those goals that society had put in your way. What comes to your mind?
When I was a young lady going to school, young ladies had to wear skirts or dresses.
Yeah.
They were not to wear pants. I was one of the first girls to wear pants to school, and I was so nervous about it. I thought I was going to get kicked out of school or get expelled or something because I wore pants. But my mother was behind me. She said, yeah. She made me a pantsuit, vest and pants to match, and they were the school colors. Yeah. But I was so nervous about it, wearing it that day, that I didn't realize until I was standing in the lunch line I had on 2 different shoes.
Yeah.
I was so worried about getting kicked out of school because I was wearing pants, but I was bound and determined to wear pants to school. That was stupid, wearing dresses and shirts.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
I was a rebel there. I was one of the very first girls to start wearing shirts. I was the first girl. I had wore glasses all my life, and my eye doctor said, "Oh, we've got these new things. They're called photo gray glasses, and they'll turn dark when you go out in the sun." And I said, "Oh, that sounds like fun." So I was like one of the first 100 people in the whole United States. At least that's what my eye doctor told me.
Wow.
To get these glasses. They were very new, cutting edge. And I wore them to school, and of course, with the fluorescent lights in school, my glasses were sort of like an amber color most of the time. So, of course, I got teased and ribbed about that. Everybody said I was on drugs and trying to hide my eyes and all that. Farthest thing from the truth. I wouldn't have known how or where to get drugs. I wasn't even interested in that. And I said, I'm crazy enough. I don't need any help. Thank you. So I was the first person in school to wear, photo gray glasses. I was the first girl to start wearing my fringe jacket. I was doing some Western horse festivals, and I had my riding jacket was a fringe jacket, and I just loved it so much. I wore it everywhere. So I was the first girl to have a fringe jacket in school. I had a denim knapsack, and everybody was carrying their books in their arms, so they'd have the rubber strap around them and carry them. Well, I had this denim bag, and I shoved my piccolo in it, and I said, I shelved all my books in here. So I shelved everything in my book, and I was wearing a backpack. I was the first person in school to do that. So all kinds of, So, yeah, there's some things that I've done that, nobody else was doing, and I did it anyway.
Very trailblazing. So, is there, so much comes to my mind. Is there anything that you would like to say here to the listeners about anything that's important going forward in 2021 is strange time and opportunity and just whatever the rest of it? Is there anything else that's on your mind that you feel needs to be, that you want to express in your own words?
I think you have to know yourself, and you have to look deep within yourself, your mind or your heart or both, and feel, okay, what's important to you? What makes you happy? And you just have to follow your bliss. You just have to do what makes you happy. All of my good jobs have come and found me because I've been in the right place at the right time. And, the old adage, if you do what you love, you never work for the rest of your life. Because, like, taking care of the horses, it was hard physical work, but it was never really work because it was doing something that I loved.
Wow.
Taking care of horses.
Wow.
So you really have to love what you do, because you'll do a better job at it and it'll be more satisfying to you. But like I said, all my good jobs have come and found me.
They found you. Wow.
Yeah. Huh. I'm just, in the right place, the right time, and open.
Right.
You have to be open to receive whatever's coming your way.
That's right. That's really beautiful. I can't really think of a better. I can't think of a more rewarding or better way to get towards the conclusion of this episode. It's been really. I feel like I've been through all these times with you here, and it's a lot to take in. And you've had such much such an enriching life, and I really want to thank you for your time in discussing all this and going into the weeds, as they say today, the details on all of it.
You're very welcome.
I really appreciate it, and make sure that when when this goes to air, to use an old-fashioned phrase, include some of these things you want to share, some examples, if you don't mind, of some of the things we talked about. That would be really great, if you don't mind.
I mean, like
anything that you think is important. If again on our show, if you think it's important, we'll share it. So, all
right.
So I want to thank you for all of it.
Well, you're quite welcome. Thank you.
And have a good weekend this weekend.
All right. It's supposed to be good weather, so that'll be good.
Yep. Be safe.
All right. You too, Mitch. Thank you.
I don't like goodbyes, so I'll see you soon, folks. Thank you.